One decision, $1 million, 5 years of lost ground. And not a single person in the room said stop. Stay tuned for another great episode of Bad Boss Confessional. Hi, I'm Beth Fahey, and this is Bad Boss Confessional, where real leaders get honest about the mistakes that made them better. Before we dive in, a quick thank you to our sponsors for making this show possible. Do you love running on EOS? Try Streti, the EOS platform people love. Native integrations and extra features help you manage people, projects, process, and engagement. Connected to your favorite EOS tools and all in one place. You love EOS. It's time to love the platform you're running it on. Try Streti free at streti.com. That's STRETY.com. Streti, the EOS platform people love. Let's be honest, hiring the right people is hard. That's why I love Titus Talent Strategies. Their whole person hiring approach helps you find and keep A players who align with your values, and they back it with an industry-leading guarantee. Best part? Titus Talent Strategies is included in the entrepreneurial toolkit for companies running on EOS. Check them out at titustalent.com/EOS. My guest today has done things most entrepreneurs only dream about. Built and exited multiple companies that competed on the world stage, coached US and British Olympic teams as a board-certified coach, and written a best-selling Audible book called Who is the Architect of Your Life? He's also a fellow expert EOS implementer who brings a world-class athlete's mindset to helping leadership teams gain traction. Welcome to Bad Boss Confessional, Scott Rusnak.
Beth, I'm going to do my best to not confess right away about how bad of a boss I was. How does that sound?
I know you told me you had lots of bad boss stories, so that is why you're on the podcast.
Oh, great.
So if you wouldn't mind, give us a brief 1-minute history of your career to date.
Well, Beth, as you know, as expert EOS implementers, we try to help our clients avoid all the pitfalls and all the crazy things we've done to try to mess up our careers. And I can say that my career is full of failure, full of pitfalls. And if I would have learned my lesson twice, I probably wouldn't have done it the third time. But, I was lucky enough to build a pretty cool company called Schoologic. And when the internet was kicking in, I was in Canada. And most of the people that wanted to use our product was in the States. And we had a good foothold. And the hardest thing I had to do in my career was to immigrate my new family into the States. And it is hard, even being Canadian, you could be from anywhere else. So it took us a number of years to get there. Almost went broke twice. And I used all the horrible boss lessons I had in my previous life to try to keep everyone around me as motivated as humanly possible, knowing that we were weeks away from not being able to make payroll. Pulled it off, exited from that company, and I've had a couple other ups and downs since then. And it's really been the last, I haven't been an EOS implementer for 20 years, but I've been a coach for the last 20 years. It was really the last 10 that I met you and the other great people in our community that I started to really help businesses get what they wanted and effectively help leadership teams. So it's been a fun ride.
Yeah. So you see a lot of things in your session rooms. I do too. When you have a client in front of you that's struggling with the same sort of things that you were, what would you say those things are? What's a story from your past, a confession from your past that you see played out daily in your session room?
Well, so the interesting thing is coaches, we get to work with construction, we get to work with landscape teams, doctors, lawyers, people who launch missiles in the sky. And they always come back to, here's what the issue is. They think it's some kind of product thing or maybe infrastructure or, people are worried about tariffs. And I always say every issue in your business comes back to a person. And if we can have the right people in the right seats who get it, want it, and have the capacity, we can get there. So that's what we see now. And I always tell them, you're in the people business. So let's make sure we focus on your people.
Yeah, and that doesn't always go over well, does it? Because, they wanna smartify it. They want to, you know, figure it out or intellectualize it, and it often does come back to the people.
It does. And I just say, let's go to the root cause and figure out how this started, where it's at. And this isn't about throwing anyone under the bus. It's about getting really straight on what's going on. And much like you, I'm sure it's 98% of the time, it's something to do with a person that hasn't executed properly or followed the right directions. Now, if you're ready to go back to 1979,
Take us back, Scott.
yeah, I was really working at Canadian Tire. I was 12, maybe 13 years old. In Canada, you could work at that age and they'd pay you $3 or $4 an hour. And the owner was a nice gentleman, but he brought in his son who was just sort of getting through college to become the uh, it was like a director of efficiencies for the warehouse. And so I worked in the sporting department and some other departments, and we had to bring these things out from the warehouse from time to time. And he had this big initiative. He's like, Dad's going to be away. Dad was the owner. He's going to be away for 4 or 5 days. I want you guys to go and reorganize this part of the warehouse so we can be more efficient. I said, okay, great. Well, we'll go for it. We made it happen. We followed his direction. Dad came back and people were standing in line for hours trying to get their goods out. People were outside in their cars honking their horn. And this wonderful efficiency that we followed was a complete disaster. And I was okay with it. I was just 13 years old. I said, okay, we'll fix this. But the problem was that Junior, who was supposed to be our boss, the kid in college, blamed all of us. So there was 7 or 8 of us trying to reorganize all this, and he wouldn't take the blame. And even to this, back to those days, I had no problem standing up and saying, "Look, Junior, you told us to do this, and this is why this went down. Happy to fix it." And Dad looked at Junior, and Junior said, "I didn't tell them to do that. They just kind of didn't follow the right direction." So there's this saying, you don't quit your job, you quit your boss. And I looked at Junior. I said, well, do you want to really give us proper direction so we can clean this up? Or do you want us all to quit? And it wasn't a mutiny, but the guy who owned the business quickly said to the son, "You'd take a couple of weeks off so we can get this straightened out." So it was just a good lesson of really poking someone in the nose saying, hey, you were supposed to direct me to do this. And now I'm on the verge of losing my job because you won't own it. So back to being a good boss, walk the talk, be a good parent. It's not do what I say, not what I do. So early age, really a formative lesson for me.
Mm. And through watching another person be a bad boss. So, like, how did you carry that forward? Like, were there any situations that you had where you were like, I'm not going to be that. I am not going to behave that way?
Almost all of my career from that moment onward, I'm getting goosebumps right now thinking about it because we need to have that kind of experience, that kind of public failure. We need to stand up for ourselves and say, that was the poor direction. Hey, here's the direction you gave me. So I made sure as I was building my companies, I would say to people, I think I'm doing this right. Can you help me understand if you can pull this off? Or I'd like to walk a mile in your shoes. Can we do this together to make sure we got this right? So it was walk the talk, really lead them, and then manage them and hold each other accountable. And it just became, gosh, even before EOS, LMA, lead, manage, hold people accountable. I learned that skill that I needed to walk a mile in their shoes, and things were a heck of a lot easier when I did that.
Yeah, also had, some terrible bosses at the early part of my career. So I was in the film business. I worked in the camera department and saw a lot of bad behavior, Hollywood producers, directors, enormous egos, things like that, and some pretty bad behavior. And I just remember thinking, I will not be that until one day I was.
Come on, Beth, not you.
No, our egos can get in the way and they can be very destructive. So, I mean, I love the story about what you saw and how you then apply that in the future. But did you ever have a situation where maybe, uh, the abused becomes the abuser?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. You think you're doing the right thing, but you're not. And it's all based on this thought you have in your head. So let's just say your brain was running on AI and you put in some sort of prompt and said, well, I should do this. And yes, I was very emotional at times because I had to make sure payroll happened. And sometimes you don't step back for 10 or 15 minutes to ask yourself and everyone else, are we doing the right thing? So, yeah, I had a colossal failure, probably lost close to $1 million. And this was, gosh, 25, 26 years ago before I had exited because I had a hunch. It was like, no, we've got to do this. You've got to believe me. I really believe this is the direction. And I remember my team of engineers looking at me going, Rusnak, you're out of your mind. Like, here's what we think we should do. Instead of sitting back and really IDSing, having a proper discussion, I was just pigheaded and I had this self belief it was going to work. And I probably set the company back about 5 years in 30 days.
Mm, wow. That's a big one. And did you stay at that company? Were you able to
Oh yeah,
fix
I
it?
was I was involved with that company.
Mhm.
And we talk about these successful exits. This one was terrible.
Mm.
Barely walked away from that one with the shirt on my back. And we'd lost great developers, great artists. We'd lost the confidence of some massive international brands. And yeah, we came close to losing it all. So I got in my own way. And as the boss, you just can't jump in the room and say, here's the direction we're going to go no matter what. You've got to collaborate with your team to make sure everyone's on the same page. Because if we're all rowing in that boat and there's eight of us and one person puts their oar in the ground or in the water, the boat flips over. And that was my oar. I flipped the boat and I was throwing life jackets, and not everyone wanted to swim back to the boat.
So, one of the things that you've become well known for in our community is that you are a real advocate for people living their best life. Like, you get one shot, make the most of it. You have a great book, Who is the Architect of Your Life, which I've listened to. And I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind talking about the two things that are critical for leaders at the beginning of this. You set this up at the beginning of the book, and I think that this is it. It's the secret sauce to living a great life.
There's two things, and the first one I'm going to R&D, which I try to explicitly say this is not my idea, this is not my tool. But our good friend Gino Wickman developed this thing called the People Analyzer. And I firmly believe if you want to get everything you want out of your life, you want to be the architect of your life or your business, you need to surround yourself with people that have got the exact same DNA. And by DNA, I mean core values. Interesting enough for those listening, Beth and I saw each other 2 weeks ago. We were in Denver. Hey, by the way, we've got the same core values. Hey, do the right thing, help first, do what we say, grow or die mindset. And we don't need a lot of small talk to realize we're on the same page within 30 seconds. Great, Beth, right on. Let's move on. We've got this nailed. So I firmly believe, and tonight we're going for dinner with some really good friends who fit our core values. And these core values you've got in your life have got to be the guiding principles on who you surround yourself with and how you make decisions. And when those people, when you're really aligned on those core values, then you go to GWC. Do your friends get you? Do you get them? Do you really want to be with them? Like, is someone using you? If they are, that's not a good friend. And do both parties have the mental, emotional, physical, educational time capacity to really dig in with one another? And this might seem a little obtuse to some folks, but I apply the core values, the people analyzer made by Gino Wickman to everyone I come in touch with. And if I'm going to grow deeper and do amazing things with you, we better be aligned on those values.
Absolutely. It is always people and core values. I mean, you are who you surround yourself with, right?
Yeah, and when I was young, I had some really great mentors. And the one guy said, "Look, this is like standing on the shoulders of giants. These people are going to put you in places you never imagined you'd be in, but you've always got to stay true to your values, because once you start to go in a different direction, people are going to wonder if you're the same person in each instance. So you've got to show up the same each time.
If there's one thing that I've heard more often than not on this podcast, it's I kept somebody around that didn't fit. They either didn't fit from a core value standpoint or they didn't fit from a GWC standpoint. And I kept them too long. And then I ended up losing some of my great people because they couldn't tolerate it. Do you see the same thing as well?
100%. And sometimes we do need to break up with people politely. We can talk about that later. But those people that are amazing, let's make sure that we hold ourselves to that same standard. They do and we do. Because the next tool that we find these tools as we walk down the road. And we're like, oh, that's a great tool. The next one I really believe in, it's called Dunbar's number. And it was developed by Robin Dunbar, who is a professor at the University of Liverpool. And he talks about the three concentric circles of human beings that you interact with in your life. And the first one is the small circle of 4 to 5 people who you love. You probably see them every day of the week. It could be your partner, your spouse, it could be your kids. For me, my mentor's in there. So I've got these 5 people who I've got incredible relationships with. They can poke me in the nose and I can poke them in the nose, like super tight. We're planning things all the time. Then Dunbar goes to say, well, then the next circle is about 15 people. And this next group of 15, it might be college roommates, people you work with, people from sports teams or fraternity, sorority, but you know them like sisters and brothers. You might not be on the same blood level, but you really know each other and you plan trips every 90, 180 days or big occasions. So you got these 2 important concentric circles. He then says, well, this next group can't be bigger than 150. And he went on to prove that by going into medieval times, saying anytime a community or village would get bigger than 150 people, there'd be all these bad, nefarious, terrible things happening. So for me, I'm a bit of an introvert. So I've got 5 people in my first ring, then 12, and then, yes, 38 in the last ring. But for me, when I stay true to these 3 rings, it makes it a lot easier for me to say yes to fantastic opportunities and people and no to the wrong opportunities. So I go to the people analyzer and my Dunbar's number, and those are the people I want to surround myself with.
Interesting. So that's another concept from your book that I think is just so good, is the saying no part. And I think that so many of us struggle with that. And, sometimes you say no to people like we just talked about, right? It's just, you know, this isn't going to work out. We have to think about the greater good of the organization. We can't, just think about this one person. So saying no sometimes there, but saying no is so difficult for so many folks because it's how we grew up. We tend towards being people pleasers, and when you're running a business, it's not that you're a jerk, it's that you're thinking about the collective, right? So saying no within your own business. But then it's all the other stuff as well. It's saying no too.
You know, the wonderful thing about EOS is if you've got your 3 to 5 rocks this quarter, those are your most important priorities. So let's just pretend, Beth, that you're my boss. You're like, you run in, you're like, Scott, I've got this priority. You're the man for the job. I need you to tackle it. I would like for everyone watching this to then step back and say, Beth, I appreciate it. That sounds fantastic. Help me understand what I should do with these other 5 priorities I've got to have knocked out by July 1st. That's the end of the quarter. So reset and ask. So then Beth can say to Scott, you know what? Priority 5 isn't that big of a deal. Let's have a discussion how we're going to pull that off. So get on the same page with your leader, your manager, your boss. Just be like, help me understand where this fits. Yeah, I've got the capacity, but I just need to understand which is most important first.
Yes. And I think that shifting priorities is one of the biggest EOS undoers out there.
Yeah. Well, and then let's slip this into real life. Changing priorities happens every time we walk in the door or go for a walk with our spouse. And we start talking about things and, hey, let's do this weekend, that next weekend. And I've learned through some interesting 34 years with my wife. She should have left me 34 times, believe me. A really great way to say no and a horrible way to say no. And so much like we've got these priorities every quarter, I look at her and I say, look, I've got this in front of me. Here's something that's really important to me. But I love the fact that you asked me to do this. So you honor them, you let them know where things are at. And then you say, I don't think I can fit that in, but can you help me understand how important this is to you? So I just did the same thing at work. Now I'm doing it home.
Hmm.
And I'll tell you, it has saved me from a zillion different arguments and fights. And then I go back to the core values. I said, look, if we're going to be with this certain group, let's make sure that this is my highest and best use and yours as well. So long drawn out answer, but I believe dearly in the right way to say no.
Yeah, and providing context for why you're saying no as opposed to just a flat no. It's okay to hear no from somebody if they give you the reason why. And I think that if you provide that with something that's understandable, and if somebody explains, like, hey, I would really love to do this, let me tell you why I would love to do this. I just can't right now. That's a way better way than just saying no, or worse, saying yes and then compromising yourself. Because how often do we see that in a session room is that the folks that can't say no are the ones that are burning out, starting looking for other jobs and things like that because they're just so stressed.
Well, two examples. When we talked about your podcast, I said, Beth, I'd love to do it. I am flat out in like crazy session mode for the next quarter, but can we do it towards the end of May? And it worked out really well. Here we are. It's perfect. Now, let's go now look at our leadership teams. I'm going to a quarterly this week, and there's a fantastic team. I'm holding back the names, the region, and everything. But they've got an integrator who wants to take on the world and do it all. And they're fantastic, core values fit, but their capacity is shot. And I've spoken to him in front of the entire team. I've spoken to the entire team. And we've got to fix that this week because he cannot say no. It's frightening.
Yeah, well, because I mean, then if everything is important, nothing is important. And we need somebody in that seat to be decisive and able to prioritize on their feet. And, sometimes we don't see that. And it makes for a really bumpy implementation. And, you know, we're not going to achieve the vision that way. So saying no is one of the best things ever. I mean, I think that the book that we hear about a lot in our community is Essentialism. And I assume that you've read that one too.
Love it. Great read.
Yeah, great read.
Um, I even went so far. I had a young team and just fantastic. They're just a million miles an hour. But again, the integrator couldn't say no. The business was so dependent on this person that I looked around the room and said, okay, holidays are coming up. You guys are taking 7 or 8 days. I'll bet that integrator over here will not take any time off. So the team basically cut off his email, took away all his logins, and said, you're going to take 3 weeks off. And at the start, it was torture. And he was calling me. And he's like, oh, I should have never done this. I just said, you need to follow through with this. He came back a completely different person. The office didn't burn down. Everyone picked up the things that were left on the side. And he's become that much better at saying no because he takes himself out of the equation. So perhaps there's some people that need to do that.
Yeah. And we hope that with our listeners here, that people are hearing themselves in these stories and then are thinking, maybe I need to take a clarity break and come at this a different way. All right. So what's next for you, Scott? Do you have another book in process, or are you speaking anywhere fun, or what's going on next for you?
I have some cool speaking engagements coming up, but I'm especially fired up. I've been working on a book called Fourth Quarter Mindset. Because
Say more about that.
I really believe that to get what we want out of our life and our business with our friends, we need to have the right kind of mindset. So I'm the kind of guy that if you gave me a drop of water, I could make a cactus farm. I don't need a bucket of water. So for me, this fourth quarter mindset comes to this idea that if you looked at your life like an NFL football game, the first quarter, that first call it 20 years. I'm going to assume, we're going to live till 80 and maybe more. You can't win the game in that first quarter. I really don't think you can, but you can wreck the game in the first quarter.
Mhm.
So I need people to have that mindset in that first quarter, thinking, what is it going to look like when I get towards the end of that fourth quarter? Because there's going to be a red zone. There's going to be all kinds of things going on. And I really believe Dan Sullivan, the strategic coach, he's going to live till 100. He's in overtime. And for him, overtime is pure joy. So what does it look like when you get to that fourth quarter? And I turned 60 the other week, and I'm in it now. I'm having the time of my life. But I don't look at 80 as an end point. And this just really been talking to a lot of young entrepreneurs, mid-aged entrepreneurs, and I had a great clarity break mountain bike ride with my mentor yesterday. And he's like, we got to get on this book. So there's your long answer. I'm working on a book and I can't wait to get it out.
I'm very excited about that. I think it's great because, I mean, shout out to my dad here. He's turning 100 on Thursday. I know. So it is awesome. And I have to say, I have tried to pick his brain and find out what the secret is. And his answers are just so simple. And honestly, the guy runs on EOS without even knowing it. Like he does things like, I'll say, well, how are you doing this week, Dad? How are you moving around? And he's like, I got 50 hallways in. So he's an independent living and he has a walker and he's got a scorecard, he's 50 hallways. And, he's engaged with people. He only talks to people he likes, right? To your point, at lunch. He does, he's just always been kind of doing this work towards living a long life and a great life. And I think that it's just such a pleasure to have a dad that is, really focused on the right things and has the right mindset. So this is a guy who has had really terrible things happen to him in his life. And I didn't mean to go on about my dad here, but it's just like it's happening on Thursday. But he's had really terrible things happen. He lost his mom when he was 6 to breast cancer. Um, he was a World War II veteran, was shot at a few times, has he had 3 marriages, you know, and he's had some pretty serious things happen to him, but he's always kept a positive mindset. He's always been super positive. And, he's the kind of guy that, like, the story about the kid shoveling, horse shit out of out of the barn, I'm looking for the pony. That's my dad. And so I just seeing somebody like that with the right sort of mindset, and we can all get caught up. And he's not perfect either. He's definitely had his moments. But if you ask him how he's doing on any given day, it's I'm gingy peachy keen, or I'm above ground, so it's a good day.
Yeah, I love it. Dang. He's got to be on your podcast. And after I watch that podcast, I want to interview him because I'd love to get some of his perspective for my book.
Well, interestingly, I did interview him. It's a short video. It's on my. I'll put a link in the show notes for this. But during COVID, I interviewed him because I couldn't see him, and he was a great boss. He worked at the same company for 45 years, and when he retired, everyone came up to me and told me what a great boss he was. And so you'll hear his secret to being a great boss in that. So I'll put the link in. But yeah, his hearing is pretty much gone at this point. So I've thought about bringing him back, but it would be like, Dad, Dad, like the whole time. So
It'd be entertaining. It'd be great.
it'd be fun. So anyway, I didn't mean to go off into that whole thing, but it is an auspicious week in our family. And, you know, having a life that's that long, you got to plan for having the right mindset during that, because do you want to be miserable the entire time?
No.
No. No. It's too long. It's too long.
There's I'll make a short plug for another really interesting thing I saw the other day. It's Martin Short's movie or whatever thing he's got on Netflix. It's called Life is Short. I'll tell you what a guy with an incredible mindset that's had to go through hell and high water. So it comes right back to mindset.
Yeah, I saw that. It was a great documentary and really funny. And he's just still going. And he's had even recently some really bad things happen. So, I mean, plus he's the funniest guy in the world. I mean, I could watch Jiminy Glick like all day long. I mean, I'm dying every time he does it. So, anyway,
Let's turn all that on its head though. Imagine a really great boss that had a growth mindset that was like Martin Short, that knew we were going to screw things up and we'll get it across the line if we're together. That's an amazing boss. So
that's right. That's right. You want to see that resilience in action. It's just such a great role model for people. Well, all right. Last question I have for you, Scott. I always ask my guests, if you were to get a tattoo on your body somewhere that was really significant to you, it doesn't have to relate to the story that we talked about today, but I don't know if you have any tattoos, but if you were to get one, what would your tattoo be and where would it be located?
yeah, I don't have one and I won't get a tattoo on the outside of my body. Mainly because I love skiing in Japan. And when you go to the onset, if you have a tattoo, you can't go in. But what I will do, Beth, is I will get a tattoo on the inside of my body. We're going to rip apart the skin on the outside and you're going to tattoo on the inside. It's going to be a rhinoceros. And I read a book forever ago called Rhinoceros Success. And it's just hilarious if you listen to it or read it. But you got to have thick skin. You got to charge down paths that no one else wants to go down. And you got to wake up every morning ready. So it'd be a rhinoceros. It would be on the inside of my skin, and we would sew it back on. And I would tell people it's there.
Great. Well, until then, I'm going to buy you a t-shirt with a rhinoceros on it and I'll send it to you.
That'd be amazing. I love it. Thank you.
I'm going to find it. All right. Well, thanks so much for being on the podcast, Scott. It was really great to get to know you a little better. And thanks for sharing a piece of yourself with the audience today. It was really great to hear your stories.
One plug to the Rollout book, probably one of the best EOS books ever written. All of my clients are running on it, and great bosses need to listen to it.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. It was a labor of love, and we hope to help a lot of people with it. So thank you. Thanks to Scott for reminding us that even the most accomplished leaders need the right people around them who are willing to say stop. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, subscribe, and share with friends who need to hear this. Thanks for listening to Bad Boss Confessional. We'll see you next week.